Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield on this Tuesday, September 5th, following the PDGA Professional Disc Golf World Championships. And wow, what a week up in Vermont, Josh. I'm sorry you weren't there to experience it all with us. It was beautiful. And, you know, it was dramatic, kind of. But ultimately, the final day didn't really deliver in terms of an exciting finish down the stretch, as Kristen Tatar walked it in, winning over Missy Gannon comfortably at the end of it all. And Isaac Robinson hangs on to his lead card spot after round 4 and comes through with another brilliant performance to close out his second major of the season and of his career. Becomes the fastest player to get to 2 major wins in MPO history. Pretty amazing stuff, Josh. Isaac Robinson, I want to just give you this stat, and I'll just remind everybody, we've already discussed this tournament extensively in our Inside the Circle Rapid Reacts live shows from the week. We did one every day. I would highly recommend that you get yourself a subscription and check out what we talked about. We've already recapped the final round, basically, over there for at least an hour, if not 90 minutes. So today will be a little more focused on bigger picture topics. Isaac Robinson, I just checked this. He never shot the hot round. And in fact, Josh, he was never within 2 shots, any closer than 2 shots of the hot round. And one day, on day 2, he was 6 shots behind the best round of the day. And, you know, I don't have the stats in front of me to know, but I think it's probably exceedingly rare to win a tournament in MPO without having shot at least one hot round or had a share of it. But Isaac's consistency from day to day over the course of 5 rounds, consistently being up near the top, 2, 3, 4 strokes off of the best round of the day, was enough to carry him to what was a comfortable victory at his first ever World Championship.
While I also don't have the stats in front of me, not shooting the hot round is, I think, a feature of the way that this tournament played out, given the state of the leaders after each round. Let me give you an example of somebody who did shoot 2 of the hot rounds, Eagle McMahon, on kind of the flip side of who Isaac Robinson was for this tournament. Isaac Robinson, steady as it goes all weekend long. Eagle McMahon only goes 16 down through the first 3 rounds. And at that point, I mean, I don't want to go back to the fork sub bonus. If you haven't listened to that, you need to go check that out.
Everyone's going to be like, the fork? What?
Some of the worst takes that I've had both had in a while. Including Eagle McMahon is completely out of it and has no way to come back into it. What I didn't foresee is that after only going 16 down, through the first 3 rounds, he manages to go 27 down in the last 2 rounds. That is in part because when you are that far behind, when you're and shooting the hot rounds, it's built from a pressure to try and drive back to the top. And Isaac's steady performance was just surrounded by guys who either weren't playing well in the beginning and then were shooting hot at the end, or who were shooting hot, Chris Clemens, and then falling off the leaderboard very quickly. And so it just always shuffled around Isaac.
Well, I mean, let's look, right? Every day we had a new leader. After round 1, Chris Clemens. He fell off when he played Fox. After round 2, Grady Shue. He had 2 solid rounds. Then he fell off.
After Grady round 3, and Nicholas, wasn't it?
Were they tied? I thought it was Grady outright, but they might have been tied.
And either way, Isaac fell off too.
As did Nicholas.
Nicholas fell off.
As did Nicholas.
Right.
After round 3, Cole Rodolin takes control. He has a brutal round. And in fact, it's so funny. He's posting, I had one of the luckiest rounds of my life while also playing some of my worst disc golf. He had all these crazy bounces. He had one on hole 5 where his disc is going to skip straight into the water and it just hits the stake and stays in. So he falls off. Then Isaac Robinson takes the lead and doesn't blink. And that was really the difference. Yep. Is that it was, and to be honest, that's how you win a Worlds. It's 5 rounds. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be consistently good. And Isaac Robinson was consistently good, and I think played sparkling disc golf in the final 2 rounds at Fox Run. Maybe it wasn't the hot round, but he was awesome. I mean, he couldn't be touched. And he never really gave anybody a chance to catch up to him.
I think that this Worlds also requires us to begin to rethink a little bit the nature of 5-round tournaments. Because there were a lot of, I guess, perceptions about where people were at in the leaderboard, about comeback potential, about the strokes behind, where that line was. And all of those takes just feel really, I guess, like incompatible with the storylines of how Worlds actually finished. When we looked at the players who we expected to play well, the players who were playing well. And that's what I think makes Worlds such an intriguing tournament relative to the rest of the rest of the tournaments and even the rest of the majors. It's the two courses and 5 rounds that mean, for example, after round 3, after the second round at Brewster, we were trying to talk about, who is going to be playing well. And I ruled Isaac Robinson out because of how poorly he'd played at Fox over his, last round as in round 2, as well as at GMC in 2022. And then he turns around and plays great. And so 5 rounds is just so many that, and there are so many competitive players now who are up in the mix that it's really requiring us to kind of rethink the way that 5-round tournaments and Worlds, especially now, is going to play out. And it really is a marathon, not a sprint. And Isaac Robinson is definitely showing us that.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at this. Of the 13, so if you look at the 13 highest rated players at this tournament in MPO, excluding Manabu Kajiyama, so the top 13 guys, right? They all finished in the top 20. And aside from Nicholas, who was 19th, they all finished in the top 13. So there was truly a cream rising to the top situation, which is what Worlds is designed to be. Now, it may not be quite the 9-round craziness of the past, and some people might pine for that, but I don't. I don't think we need a final 9. I don't think we need to go back to 7+ rounds. It's too grueling. It's not well suited to the spectator experience. Doing 2 rounds in a day, it's just too much. 5 is this perfect sweet spot where you have that chance to make up for a missed couple putts, an off round here or there, and still find your way to the top of the leaderboard. And, we talked a little bit about this in the reacts. Like, are people going to call this fluky? Well, if they're going to call this fluky, they're not paying attention. Because Isaac Robinson now has 2 majors to his name, multiple Elite Series wins, and he's one of the highest rated players in the world. And he's what is he, second on the Pro Tour standings?
Pro Tour standings.
So, I'm sorry, that isn't fluky at all. Everyone needs to update their mental model of who is good. Isaac Robinson is one of those dudes right now. And I think we all just have to accept that. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible to watch another totally dominant backhand player just excel on a pair of courses where you truly have to be able to throw both shapes. And it did not slow him down. I think he's the number 1 putter thrower on the planet right now.
The fluky narrative reminds me of the narrative last season after around Ricky Wysocki and the World Championships and Player of the Year, and people who said things like, oh, the World Championships aren't a indicative measure of who's the best in the world because it's a single tournament and it's not even a qualification event really. And so anybody can play well during that 1 week and that's not about who is truly indicative of best of the world. But the point that you make here in terms of the ratings and where people are finishing relative to their ratings, I think that the tournament is designed in a way and such that, number one, it is an incredibly competitive format that allows for players who are the best at the sport and are rated as such and indicative of that to rise to the top. But number 2, and what's really important here, and this is a skill that I think Isaac has that other players do not, is it also allows for a test of who can rise in the moment. And unfortunately, a player of the year statistic or a most tournaments won or a average podium finish, like any other metric to determine who the world champion is, fails to properly take into account as to, do you rise at the most important moments? And so maybe if you really wanted to contend that the world championships should be a 3-part series, like, I guess, like, I see the argument, but what's so impactful about this tournament is it is in my opinion, the fairest, most robust structure to creating a set of conditions where the best players in the world have the most opportunity to succeed, and then you have to come ready to deliver. And Isaac Robinson has done that not only at the Worlds, but he does it at Champions Cup, and those majors are meaningful in a skill and an ability to win at the highest moments that I think need to be considered when you're not only, looking at the surrounding accolades of Isaac Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, like, what? So Gannon Burr has more wins than Isaac Robinson this year, right?
Yep.
But it's just, they're not the same caliber of victories. It just is what it is. And people are going to come in the comments. They're going to say, "Oh, the Upshot guys always talking about how the majors and majors, they overemphasize the majors." I'm going to keep doing it until I'm dead. So get used to it. Because the players also care more. Look at what we saw out there this weekend. People were locked in. Mm-hmm. Intense focus. Intense determination. Luca Lorenzen hits a putt to stay in, top 7 on the 18th. Big circle 2 make in front of a huge, thousands of people. She's got tears pouring down her face. This is not just another tournament. I know the players will say that, but they're telling themselves that to prepare for their optimized performance, right? If you make it too big, you're going to shy from the moment. But I couldn't agree more. And part of what makes this all fun and interesting is not just that we measure people because they have the highest average finish on tour. We want to see how people handle the pressure cooker. Not just who can play, like, otherwise people could go play C tiers and average 1054 disc golf, and we'd be like, they're the best player because they have the highest average, the highest rating. No. Can you do it when it counts? That's part of what it's all about. And that's what's look at the company that Isaac Robinson is in now. Not only has he become the fastest player to win 2 majors, he does it in 133 days. Second fastest was Nico, 245 days between the 2009 USDGC and the 2010 Japan Open, which is not the same kind of event in terms of quality. Macbeth, it took him 295 days. Ken Climo took him 315 days. That was a different era. It was worlds to worlds. And Dave Feldberg did it in 05-06 USDGC and then European Open in 316 days. But Isaac also becomes a multiple-time major winner. He also becomes just the 6th, check that, make it 7th MPO player to become a multiple major winner in a single season. Here's who's the list. Okay, you ready? Macbeth, Climo, Wysocki, Barry Schultz, Dave Feldberg, Will Schustrick, and now Isaac Robinson. That is a pretty good list to be on.
That is a great list to be on. And the other thing, I think that you kind of harass Nico for his other major being the Japan Open, which I agree. I think that's a fair harassment. Paul Macbeth, he went from 2012 Worlds to the 2013 Copenhagen Open.
Obviously, some of these things are like scheduling, right? I mean, it's like it's right. Kind of it. It's a cool stat, but these are all players who got good and then were good.
And we're good. Yeah, exactly.
Nico maybe caught lightning in a bottle, that 2009-2010 range of his career. But the other names on this list are all guys who are first ballot Hall of Famers.
Oh yeah. well,
Paul Macbeth. He's a second ballot. Oh, they really blew that one.
Man, that hurts. Oh no. The other part that I think is remarkable that you pair this with is first off, you still have a guy on this list, two guys in terms of the multiple major winners, Macbeth and Wysocki. They're still active players, right? They are in the field, and Isaac is playing against them, and that I think already adds some credibility. But the depth of this field, and I know this is a point that we talk about a lot. The Climo, for example, from 90 worlds to 91 worlds, it's an amazing stat. Like Climo deserves lots of recognition and accolades and credit for all that he's done. But Isaac deserves it in a way as well because of the depth of the quality of the field that he had to beat in order to get here. It is, I mean, the list of guys and the way that the sport is progressing makes every major victory that much more significant, that much more impactful. And Isaac just keeps managing to rise to the top now.
I want to talk a little bit about how he got there this weekend, because I think coming into the tournament, we were even talking about it. Our over-under on Circle 2 putting was 50% for the winner. The idea that you're going to have to be able to have an incredible putting weekend, that was going to be the separator. That the guy who won, all these guys are going to throw good. Whoever is making their putts is going to win this tournament. It simply isn't true for Isaac Robinson. That is not how he won. He was 77th in strokes gained putting. He was just so damn good off the tee and in the fairways that it didn't matter. Second in fairway hits, first in parked, first in Circle 1 in regulation, second in Circle 2 in regulation, and, unsurprisingly led the tournament in birdie percentage. But, he didn't scramble great, 55%. His Circle 1 putting was fine, 88%, good number. But he was 141st in Circle 2 putting at just 20%. And Josh, it didn't matter.
Well, and I think that the other part that goes along with that is in terms of the putter throwing and the consistency, right? There are the impressive part here is Isaac Robinson his Circle 1 in regulation stat was just it was incredible. His fairway hits. I mean, you talk a little bit about this, but his birdie percentage at 62%. All those stats combined, that even and you point out here that the putting was lackluster. Well, not even lackluster. It was good enough to get the job done. And the separation from him and the rest of the field in other areas was just so significant. It's amazing to me that he didn't shoot the hot round, because we see Isaac Robinson at times. Isaac Robinson is a good putter. Isaac Robinson's an excellent putter. And when he won at Idlewild last year, he did so with spectacular Circle 1 and Circle 2 putting numbers. And so the fact that Isaac doesn't break out with the putting just makes this even more impactful, I think, in terms of how well Isaac played everywhere else.
He only had an average of 3 Circle 2 putts per round, which really tells you what kind of skill he was showing off the tee. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, he really only had one bad round, and it wasn't that bad. He shot 6 under at the first round of Fox Run. And that was driven by a few OBs, a couple mid Circle 1 putts. But then he cleaned it up. He shoots a 12 under in the fourth round, and then he shoots what probably could have, I would say confidently would have been a 12 under had he needed to birdie on 18. He didn't. He laid up and ended up taking a bogey and finished with a 10 under. But he didn't really blink. I mean, he had the bogey on hole 5, which made us be like, maybe. And then he goes par on 11 and 12. Meanwhile, Eagle and Barella are eagling on 13. And so you're like, okay, maybe, but it didn't matter. He just kept getting birdie after birdie. And he never really let anybody get within a meaningful stroke of him. Right. So some guys, I think, closed the gap at some point, but they were 2 or 3 holes ahead of him on the course. So it was kind of a false sense of how tight the leaderboard was.
The other thing with the Circle 2 putting and the way Isaac was playing then is when you're not relying on big Circle 2 putts or lots of long Circle 1 putts, that reduces pressure. I think it's part of the reason why Isaac Robinson is able to maintain his lead from round 4 to round 5 when no other guy was able to. When your like ability and your level of play is not based on a high pressure, difficult to replicate, because think about circle 2 putting statistics, right? Going from 60% to 10% is oftentimes the difference between 2 and 3 putts. And that's also the difference between the hot round and dropping to the middle of the field. And so if your circle 2 stats aren't that good, but you're not having to look at a lot of circle 2 putts.
Exactly.
Then that pressure never, like there's never a time for that pressure to seep in and influence that round. And that's why Isaac stays on top.
The volume of the circle 2 putting is just as important, if not more so, than the percentage at which you're making.
Yes.
And that's it's easy to miss when you just look at the raw statistical numbers. That's why strokes gained is a helpful metric, because it lets us think about that a little more meaningfully, right? He lost 1 point something strokes to the field on circle 2. It doesn't matter if you're throwing it good. So one of the things we talked about briefly in the Rapid Reacts, are we in a new era? This year has felt like it's been built different in terms of the competitive quality at the top, in terms of how difficult it is to win on any week-to-week basis. We see guys winning and then finishing 50th. And we have guys like Parker Welk getting a victory. Evan Scott popping up. Culver Dahlin popping up. We got these young kids, boom, boom, boom. And Josh, we were talking before the show. When it feels like the Macbeth Wysocki era is over. And I was thinking, when did it end? Because like sometimes an era ends and you don't really notice it right away, and then you kind of look back and you say, "Oh yeah, that was like a couple of years ago," right? But we just looked at it. 2019, Paul Macbeth won basically everything. He was on fire. He had multiple major wins, a zillion Elite Series. He was the best player on earth, and it wasn't close. 2020, COVID, weird year. But Macbeth and Wysocki still constantly up at the top and doing their thing. Only one major, USDGC. Was that the year Dickerson won?
I think so.
Yeah. 2021. Ricky Wysocki wins Player of the Year. 2022. And Macbeth wins USDGC that year, right?
Yeah, Macbeth wins USDGC and a handful of Elite Series as well. Yeah.
2022, I'm thinking, well, maybe it was last year. Well, Macbeth had an year, but he won Worlds. And Ricky Wysocki won Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And so I think, Josh, I'm going to call it. The start of 2023, we've entered a new era. And it's, I don't know if you want to call it the parity era, the COVID, post-COVID era. We can come up with a name. Maybe people will email us, upshot@ultiworld.com, and give us an idea for the name of this current era that we are in. But it's not clear. Like, it's not. I don't want to call it the Calvin era. I mean, he's been the best player this season, but it's not like it's him alone, like it's been with Macbeth in the past. And there's too many guys who are winning to really name any particular set of players. But it's a transition of power right now, and Isaac Robinson is one of the faces of that.
And I think what's so interesting about Isaac Robinson being the face of that is it shows kind of the diversity of this era. Macbeth and Wysocki, when they were the dominant players, they obviously have their own independent and unique styles, but they both are very distinctive in those flavors. But they really felt like that was it, right? Like you always compared. It was Macbeth and it was Wysocki, and then everything else was just. It was good, right? Nate Sexton and his forehand, or Big Germ, in that forehand category, or Nico and his flex lines, whatever, James Conrad even with his backhand and the turnover. All of those really felt like subpar to the Ricky and Macbeth styles because of how dominant they were. And what's funny to me now is when you look at, because of the diverse set of winners, it feels, and now let's consider the styles, right, of these winners. You have Isaac Robinson, doesn't have a forehand, throws putters just incredibly well. I'm just going to run down the leaderboard. Anthony Barella, throws a mile, right? And also has a really incredible power forehand. Eagle McMahon, same deal there, right? But also Eagle, excellent from long circle 2 putting because of his standstill, no jump approach. You've got Matty O. Matty O has a style all his own, with the little like bounce in his swing.
I need the supercut of sunglasses coming off during Worlds. He wasn't even catching them later in the tournament. He was so locked in. Shout out to another podium for Matty O.
You have Calvin Heimberg, who has, in terms of like he throws fairway drivers really well, the low ceiling shots. Anyway, I could go on and on, but the point that I want to highlight is all of these guys have very, very distinct and unique playing styles and ways that they approach the game, but they're winning and they're at the top and they're all successful doing that. And that is so unique and something that I think is so remarkable. And I love seeing Isaac getting this credit because James's unique style was something that people, enjoyed. And then he won the occasional Elite Series, but it was always still about Macbeth and Ricky, right? And this is cool and a different feature of the new era that I hadn't considered before.
Yeah, and it's not like there weren't other guys winning, especially in those 2019, 2020, 21, 22 years.
Sure.
Conrad Majors, Dickerson Majors,
yes.
Sexton won an 18, I think. But you had other guys winning tournaments. It's not like it was just like all Macbeth Wysocki the same way that it was in 14, 15, 16.
16, yeah.
But it's not like it was now.
No.
So pretty interesting to see. Let's talk about Kristen Tatar. Wow. Opens the tournament up with back-to-back 10 30-plus rated rounds, and then kind of struggles a little bit in rounds 3 and 4 relative to the standard that she had set earlier in the tournament. But Missy Gannon, who closed the gap all the way down to a stroke during round 4, took a double bogey on 18 at Fox Run and ended up trailing by 4 strokes heading into the final day. And Kristen was able to put together just a remarkable final round. Slowed a little bit down at the end, but she was 7 under through 12 holes. And as great as Missy played the whole week, including in the final round, it just simply wasn't enough to overcome the quality that Kristen showed in really every facet of the game. Just a complete performance from Kristen Tatar. The only thing that held her back this week at all was Circle 1 putting, where she was just 74%. But otherwise, she was top 5 in every meaningful category and avoided going OB and just, was nobody could catch her.
What's remarkable to me is that Kristen has kind of redefined what it requires to be successful at a major. She shoots 1,007 event rating. And we talk about how she has 2 subpar rounds relative to Missy and her standards in that. And honestly, that 1,007 should be higher, right? The double bogey on 18 was, a short layup and goes OB when it doesn't matter. And probably could have been closer to 1,000 and bumping that up a few more percentage points. Missy shoots 997 rated golf, which before would have been, that you see that number and you're like, oh, the other person must have absolutely shredded if you took second at Worlds with 997.
Well, Josh, it's literally winning the tournament in any year in FPO history besides this year and last year. She's the highest second place finisher in terms of event rating ever at Worlds.
There you go. There's the stat. But compare that with the fact, right? Like there you go. There's the point. Now think about that stat in the MPO. When did that happen in MPO? Because we saw it recently.
That was Macbeth at European Open.
That's right. And Eagle shoots lights out, best round we've ever seen to do it, right? Like our best tournament we've ever seen, arguably, to in order to accomplish that.
Yep.
Kristen has a pedestrian round 3 and 4 and still is able to beat Missy and create that stat.
6-shot women.
A whole, like, Kristen is on a whole nother level.
It's true. There's just no way around it. And she gets some fantastic stats to go along with it. She becomes the first player since Val Jenkins in 08-09 to win back-to-back Worlds. That was part of a three straight run for Valerie Jenkins. And she becomes the first player since Juliana Korver did it in 99 and 2000 to win 4 consecutive majors. I could not believe that stat when I heard it. That is just insane. I think about how great Paige has been, but, you know, Paige would just no-show sometimes. And, like, Paige hasn't won back-to-back majors, or back-to-back Worlds, that is.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a chance if Kristen can keep it up that she's going to just straight up dominate at the big tournaments for like the next 3 to 5 years. Obviously, she's 3 for 3 here in 2023. She's got a chance to make it the single season Grand Slam at U.S. Women's in about 2 weeks. And there's going to be some pressure. I mean, she talked about how much it would mean to her in the post-round interview after Worlds. And, you know, the question is there going to be somebody there to show up and try to take her down? Because if Missy hadn't been involved, it wouldn't have even been competitive. Yeah. She was up 12 on 3rd place.
Yeah, and that's the other part that I think highlights like how well Missy played and how crazy Kristen's win is. Missy, without Kristen here, Missy wins by 6 strokes.
Yep.
Like Missy walks it in.
Yep.
It really we said that it feels like there needs to be challenger by committee. And at this point, that's not like, I don't even think that's an accurate point, because what that implies is that every week we need somebody to step up and to shoot lights out in order to try and take it away from Kristen. At this point, the only person who can win a tournament other than Kristen is when Kristen chooses to and shows up and does not play her game. It's not even challenger anymore. That's not the right word, because I don't think Kristen she hardly gets pushed, and she did a little bit here, but Kristen has to not only not play not good. Kristen has to play bad by her standards, and somebody else has to have a good weekend or a great weekend even.
Yep.
If Kristen plays even slightly above good golf for her, I don't think there's anybody in FPO right now who can catch her.
Missy was closer to winning this tournament than people may think, though. I was saying it after round 1. You cannot count her out. And here, I'll tell you why. The weak spot was very clear. Having watched literally every single hole and every single shot, I saw basically every Missy shot of this tournament.
Yep.
She struggled to be consistent with the turnover / Anheuser backhand shot. That was it.
Missy did.
That was it. It sometimes she threw it perfectly. Beautiful. But many of her errors came on that shot. Sometimes wasn't stable enough. Sometimes too stable. Look at the final round when she was still in the conversation. Hole 1, she goes OB. What was it? Upshot. Too stable. Never got it flipped up and turned. Out of bounds.
Should have gone OB on her first shot, but got saved by the tree.
Right. Hole 4. She's out of position behind the tree. Goes to the turnover. Doesn't have enough power on it. And goes into the OB. Hole 18 in round 4. Mm-hmm. Sure, she goes OB off the tee. But it was really the killer thing was the second shot going out of bounds. And what was it? Overturned into a sudden headwind with the turnover. That was clearly the issue for her during the week. And I think one of the things that has clearly set Kristen apart is that Kristen has the backhand, has the power, has the putter, and has the forehand. Mm-hmm. She can go to a very accurate single angle forehand for approaches and throw it from 300 feet and in maybe 350. And Missy has a utility forehand, maybe can throw it 200 feet. I don't know, but like she clearly doesn't want to throw it. And there are many times where it seems like the line would be flick and she goes turnover. And sometimes she throws it just gorgeous, but the mistake rate was too high with that shot. And it seems to me that, you know, some of the people who are trying to chase Kristen and get to her level, Missy, Paige, they have to learn to throw a forehand that they can rely on for approaches or when they're in a situation where they need to throw it 300 feet. And I think if they can do that, and they can really truly challenge Kristen on a week-to-week basis. But Kristen's completeness of game is separating her right now from other people, even when she has kind of an off putting weekend.
I would make the contention, though, that the younger and newer players to the sport who have the skill set of the forehand and backhand, but maybe don't play, don't have the right mentality, don't play golf well enough. I'm looking at you, Holland, another podium for Worlds. Shout out to Holland for that. I mean, back-to-back podiums at Worlds. I think that it is more likely, if I just look at this podium right now, I think it is more likely that Holland learns to play golf before Missy develops a forehand that is necessary to match Kristen's level.
Potentially true. It's not like Missy hasn't worked on. I'm sure she's worked on it plenty.
Sure she has. All right.
And she's been touring for quite a bit longer than Holland Hanley.
And so was Paige. And I'm not saying they couldn't go back and rework it. I'm just saying when I look at that leaderboard, I see a lot of players. Evelina, Valerie Mondahano, Haley King, Ella Hansen, right? Kat Murch, a lot of players who have a strong forehand and are learning to play golf. And I think will be the ones who are able to challenge Kristen. I don't know how fast they do it, but
speaking of some of those players like Evelina, Europeans take 7 of the top 12 spots in FPO and half of the top 10.
Love that stat.
Kristen in first, Evelina and Henna tied in fourth, Silva Sarnen in sixth, Luca Lorenzen, the lowest rated top 10 finisher. She played so great this weekend. She's tied for seventh. Katie Tate in 11th and Heidi Leina in 12th. Silva Sarnen's coming, folks.
Yeah.
And how about the Europeans? I mean, I guess my question, Josh, is why do you think it is that the European women have exploded to the top of the ratings of the leaderboards at Worlds? We've been talking about this. There was this big conversation at European Open. This has been a consistent thing. What is it that's separating them from the MPO side where you have 0 top 10 finishers? You have 4 top 20 finishers, but it's just, they're not really, besides Simon, they're not really competitive week in and week out in a meaningful way. I mean, Nicholas Antila has showed flashes, but hasn't won a meaningful tournament yet. Why is there a difference there?
This is a perplexing question that I'm not sure if I fully have the answer to, but I think the one thing that sticks out to me is the courses that are played in relative to the two continents. So on the MPO side, they're playing courses that are typically more wooded. They're usually shorter and emphasize a skill set very different than the one and that is not as often emphasized on the MPO tour here in the United States. On the FPO side, they are playing the men's layout
max distance,
which is wooded and long and really long. And so they get to come over to the United States and they get to play less technical and shorter courses relative to what they are playing in Europe. And that then means that their skill set is one that is more keenly developed. And just look at over on the FPO side, right? Evelina, one of the furthest throwers in the sport. Henna, incredibly far thrower. Kristen, great distance, right? All three of them have that. And then now there are some putting and there are other, as you go down the list, the other players have, I think, other skill sets and don't stand out quite as much as those three. But the courses, I think, are and the level of difficulty of the courses, FPO European to FPO United States, are probably closer in the difficulty level. If there was like a, course rating, or, as they have in golf and that establishes handicaps and such, I think those would be much closer to parity than they would be for the MPOs.
I like the theory.
That's all I've got.
Weigh in, folks. What do you think the reason is? Upshot at ultiworld.com. Josh, how was your spectator experience watching this tournament from afar? Actually, before you answer, hold that thought.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break. You're going to answer it on the other side. Stay with us. It's the Upshot.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the U.S., employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality U.S. materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Welcome back to the Upshot. We've got a little purse watch and hole 18 review coming up. But first, Josh, I asked you a question before the break. How was your spectating experience as consuming this via DGN, YouTube, and online media?
You'll have to speak to the on the ground experience. But what I wanted to say, I am absolutely disappointed that I didn't get to come hang out at Worlds and get to see it in person and be there. But that being said, when I was watching the online and looking at like the spectators, the number of spectators who are like craning their neck to get a view and like trying to see all the shots and obviously not, if you're not VIP, not seeing all the shots, I was actually like pleasantly relieved that I think I got more, like a better and more view of the disc golf than if I had been there in person. And I thought the coverage was really superb. And I had a really excellent time watching it. And I got to see a lot of great golf. It's beautiful. I think they did an excellent job capturing the aesthetics of that course. One of the things we talked about in the Rapid Reacts, I think when it was really jumbled and there were a lot of players, when it was like after round 2 or 3, when there were 12 players within 5 strokes, I thought that the Disc Golf Network struggled to get some clean storylines out. And so it made it very difficult to follow which storylines were progressing, which players were falling off. But all in all, for my experience for the weekend, it was one of the best media consumption of disc golf that I have had probably since I've started following the sport.
Oh, there you go. I spent afternoons often watching the coverage rather than walking the course.
Oh,
because
okay.
it's an easier way to consume what's happening at the tournament. It's nice to be out there. It's beautiful. I wandered the fairways, no lanyard. I didn't have a lanyard. I had no VIP ticket. I was out there.
Oh,
I didn't go out. I wasn't out there final day though. I'm sure they would have tightened things up a little bit. And I didn't see problems. There was plenty of space for GA. There was, okay. I think VIP was well worth it, as far as I could tell. And, just to be able to get up a little bit closer makes a real difference. I wanted to point out a couple quick things. The spectator experience seemed really good. I think they didn't have enough food trucks early in the weekend, and so there was like long lines for lunch. That was fine. By the time we got to Saturday, Sunday, they had more food options there. The vendor village zone was really nice, compact, right there off of the 18th fairway.
I saw it.
They had the video board.
Looked
the
good.
video board was like really choppy in terms of its frame rate. I don't really know why. That's something that they would probably need to work on in the future and figure out a better solution for how they want to get the feed, or, you know, what, I don't know what the issue was with the video board, but it's kind of choppy. But just like a great overall experience. There was a guy there every day from like 7 to 11 a.m. with free coffee. They just had free coffee. Every day I got free coffee from that guy. Legend. Okay. That was huge. And it's just such a nice place to be because it's such a compact. If you choose to stay in the resort, you know, they got the Fall Fest going on. You can take the shuttles around super easy. You don't need a car to just kind of be, you know, immersed in the disc golf. And you're 20 minutes from Stowe and like a ton of great restaurants. And, you know, it's pretty remote, but like there's enough going on, especially if you have a car, to have a great time outside of the disc golf as well. So I think it seemed like a great experience. I'm sure folks will let us know what they thought if they were on the ground. Hit us up, upshot@ultiworld.com. What was your world's spectating experience like? Tell us about it. Interesting thing, and I don't know for a fact that this is the first time that this has happened, but I have a sneaking sense, and I actually want to reach out, and I will, to the PDGA about this. There were course marshals on basically every hole, maybe every single hole, at least for the final couple rounds. And they were empowered to make binding rulings on things like missed bandos. And I've never heard of that before. But Josh, we're seeing progress on having rules officials out on the course who can make decisions that the card cannot just say, well, I'm giving myself a great spot. And everyone's like, yeah, great spot. Now, I'm not sure that the spotters always did an awesome job of spotting. Like, there were some egregious spots given, generally in favor of the players, at points this weekend. But I thought it was quite interesting that there were, you know, as many marshals as there were out there, and that we're starting to see that, you know, they are making calls, basically.
Great progression. That is... I think I saw him getting involved. It was on hole 5 final day, I believe, when Kristen was down by the bridge in the ditch and just like in a muddy kind of wet mess and disaster. I think we saw the marshal like getting involved in helping.
Talking about the casual relief options.
Exactly.
There.
Yeah. And just having someone there who can talk through those. And even if it's not 100, because here's the thing. When I got on the city council, they told us, this sounds like completely off the topic, but I promise it's a great analogy. When I got on city council, what they told us, they said, is if the city attorney tells you to do something, no matter what you do, like if you do what the city attorney told you, you are going to be fine. That's the rule. If the city attorney tells you this is how it should be and you follow it, you will never be in trouble. I feel like it's a similar way with this. If a PDGA marshal tells you that this was okay and you do it, even if they go back and retroactively find that there was a problem, like that creates a level of insurance and security for the player in a way that I can't even imagine how relieving that must be. This is a necessary change, and I get that it's probably not feasible at every tournament yet. But at the World Championships, this is a huge step up.
Love to see it. Now, a little controversy post-tournament. Brody Smith posting over on Twitter complaining about slow play from a card that included Nico Locastro. He also called out Andrew Presnell, or somebody called out Andrew Presnell. And then there's been a big back and forth on X. God, it's going to annoy me every time I say that. And, you know, Prez is like pulling out the UDisc, you know, time of round stats and blah, blah, blah. And, oh, this wasn't that bad. And, oh, we were losing this, so it took us a while. We were playing poorly. And Brody is, you know, scorched earth tactics as usual, complaining about slow play not being enforced. And you know what? I don't even care. Okay. The details here are not important. Here's what the point that I want to make. Brody's right. In the general point that he is trying to make, he is right. Slow play is a problem that is not being enforced by marshals. In fact, I was talking to a player well down the leaderboard not up at the top, who was playing with someone who was playing very slow. And they were walking with a marshal was following their card for multiple holes, never made a call until they got to like 18 and there were spectators around, and then gave a time warning on basically the final hole of the round. After we're talking about like 60 plus seconds for some shots. So I think that there is definitely a reluctance for some reason not to give time warnings to players, and we need to keep it moving. And I don't care whether that card, I have no idea what the deal was with that card with Nico on it, but they probably played slow. Like
Nico and Prez.
Do I need to be convinced? I don't. But whether you agree with Brody's style of trying to deliver this message or not, he's right that slow play is not being punished. Mm-hmm. And especially at a tournament where there are marshals out on the course who could be pulling out their Nico stopwatch and timing it out, like this needs to be something that is taken seriously, because it annoys other players. It's annoying for fans watching at home, and it slows down everybody. I would like them to actually enforce this. Now, the rule change coming for next year, where they can basically stroke the card, means that this will probably be better on its own because players will be pushing each other more. But I just wanted to weigh in on this topic.
Hot take here. I actually hate the rule change in cases where marshals are available on every hole. Because if the marshal goes, oh yeah, sorry, like this card needs to be playing faster. Come on, guys, you need to get your card mate going faster. Like that's what they're there for, right? The point of the group of effort, right, is to give people incentive, and also I think in a way to give people a way out. If right now I say, hey, look, I got to give you a time warning, you're not playing fast enough, there's no consequence for me if I don't do that, right? So it just makes me look like the bad guy. Charlie, you're playing too slow. I need you to pick it up. This is going to be a time warning. If that doesn't change, like nothing affects me. But now when the marshal says, hey, or the TD or whoever at the lower levels say, hey, Josh, Charlie, your guys' card's playing too slow, this is going to be a time warning for you. Then I can say, hey, man, come on. Like, don't forget, like we all could get a stroke if we don't play a little bit quicker. And there's like the way I'm able to engage with other players on my card is very, very different. But when there's a marshal on every hole who could say, hey, Nico, you are playing too slow. You are taking 60 seconds on every shot on this hole. And I texted the marshal before, and the guy before said that he mentioned the same thing to you. That's going to be a stroke. Like that is what the marshals are there for, and they just need to be doing their job better.
Maybe they could carve out some kind of, stat, like this is a marshal enforced tournament, and like at those tournaments we have slightly different rules than at a regular tournament. Great. I don't know.
Yeah.
Brody makes people so mad, and on this one he's basically right. Even if he's not specifically right, he's right in the general sense.
Yep.
And he's probably specifically right too. Not a lot of drama though around this tournament in general. There was no umbrella gate. Okay, go ahead.
Let me just one like quick complaint. Get your bags off the OB line, people. I don't know who that was. I think it was the spotter.
Josh versus Bags, part 2.
Isn't this like part 17 at this point? Like, imagine watching Umbrella Gate last year, seeing that happen and going, his umbrella was inside the OB. So if I put it on the other side of the line, I'm going to clear. Isaac Robinson, if you don't know what I'm talking about, hole 1, round 4, Isaac throws an overturned shot. It hits the bag, and it was so clearly out of bounds that the spotter raises the red flag, looks down, and is like, oh, dang, the disc is in bounds, and has to switch to the green flag. Go watch it on Jomez. It's hilarious. But why is that bag there? Like, he picks it up and moves it 4 feet back into the brush. It does not need to be that far back. It's just give me just a couple of feet, And there's a point where like if a disc is skipping and coming back in bounds, but it catches spectator stuff, like there's going to be limits, right? There are going to be limits. You can't throw a skip shot on hole 18 if you're a lefty because you got people lying on the road on the fairway, and that's okay. But get your stuff off the OB line. Don't bring your bags. It drives me nuts, man.
All right, here we go. Purse watch. It is time. Big cash, $275,000 purse as advertised. They didn't go above that number, but hard to complain about easily the largest payout of the year. Almost double the second highest tournament of the year, which was the Champions Cup, $140K. $172,000 in added cash. That meant that $200,000 went to MPO, $75,000 to FPO, a $30,000 payout for Isaac Robinson, 15 G's for Kristen Tatar. Fourth place at MPO got $10,000.
It's a nice stat.
Pretty nice. And that's what happens when you have a huge tournament, a lot of spectators, and a big-time title sponsor. So kudos to the PDGA, Jeff Spring, the Pro Tour, and everybody involved in putting together the highest payout that we've ever seen outside of the Pro Tour Championship.
You know, Charlie, and the other thing that we have to note is great job to keeping it to one title sponsor. It is possible to have a big payout and only put one name at the end of your tournament.
I didn't know it was possible.
Based on the way this year's went, I didn't either.
Presented by LL Bean, powered by, driven by. So yeah, nice paydays for those players. That's got to be Isaac Robinson's biggest payday ever.
Oh, geez. I bet that would be most players' biggest payday ever.
Tatar has won more than $15,000 in the past because of the Pro Tour Championship.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens for this year's Pro Tour Championship. I would expect it to be higher than 275 based on history.
Last year's being higher than 275?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's it.
So let's take a look at our hole 18 reviews. Josh, is this a perfect 10? This has got to be my favorite 18 on tour. It's fantastic. And I was thinking about docking a point for MPO because it's not eagleable, but I have seen it done. I've seen Calvin, I've seen Nico throw it into putting range. So it's doable. It's really hard. And if the wind is wrong, it's probably impossible. But you can't ask for a better combination of challenge, spectatability, pressure, the dangerous green. It is an awesome hole. I'm going double tens, Josh.
Ooh, okay. I do give the 10 to MPO, but I am going to make one knock on the FPO, actually. I think the FPO hole is too hard, and I think it's an easy fix. Because the tree is in the for the MPO side, that tree is just short of the landing zone. That's right in the middle of the fairway. And for the FPO side, I think that you just need to bring the tee pad down a little bit and then let the FPO players decide how far they want to throw it so that if they challenge the tree and get up far enough that they have that shot, whether it's a forehand or a backhand. A forehand really has a good opportunity, but for the backhand, you really kind of have to challenge the left side to get around that tree and open up the space. I think it is a touch too hard right now for the FPO side. It played half a stroke over par in the final round. This is after a cut, and there was only 8% birdies, which was a total of 3 of them: Haley King, Maria Oliva, and Katrina Allen. And let's say Kristen could do it as well, right? I would like the hole to be shortened just a touch, and I think that you could still preserve the integrity of the hole without jeopardizing the landing zones. It would create a little bit of extra technicality, but I think it would mean that players who aren't just the furthest throwers in the sport have a real opportunity at birdie, and that would be the one thing I'd like to see. I give it a 9.
I honestly think if more FPO players had a power forehand, this is a very reachable hole.
You might be right.
It's a really tricky birdie if you don't have a good long forehand because you're typically unable to go around the tree to the right.
Sure.
And so you're trying to throw a turnover, and it's sketchy. And it's just a hard hole. I mean, it was either the hardest or the second hardest hole for FPO every round. I could see them backing off a little bit on the distance required, but I don't know. I feel like it's just a hard hole, and it should be a hard hole.
It's fair.
But I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
It does not surpass the European Open's perfect tens, Josh. I don't know. In retrospect, I feel like this is a better hole.
I think both of them are equally good.
They're really good. They're both really good.
I when we started this exercise going into the end of going into the year, the two holes that I were like, these two deserve perfect, are probably going to be the perfect tens. European Open, Fox Run. Like that's it. Those are the two.
Quickly checking in on our picks. We didn't do terrible. We didn't do great. Josh and I both had Isaac Robinson in the 2 spot on our podium, so we picked up a point there. Brian got Matty O on his podium. Love that
Let's
pick.
go, Brian.
And then each of us had Kristen and Missy on our podiums. I had Owen Scoggins in second and Missy in third. It's too bad about Owen dealing with the injury and having to DNF, though I think she definitely made the right decision. Kristen and Missy both 1-2 on your podium and Brian's podium, but we all missed on Owen. So shout out to Holland Hanley for another top 3 finish at a Worlds. Mm-hmm. So that is going to do it for this edition of the Upshot. On Thursday, we will be joined by Isaac Robinson, and we'll see about Christian Tatar. I haven't confirmed that yet, but trying to do that. But looking forward to talking to the MPO World Champ. And we will also get you ready for the Discmania Open. Probably do some mailbag as well. So get your questions in about Worlds or the end of the season. Upshot@ultiworld.com. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on The Upshot.